In December 1992, 6 meteorologists vanished during the worst blizzard in Colorado history. Their weather station kept broadcasting data for 32 years, from a mountain where no one could survive. Last month, when investigators finally reached the summit, what they found beneath the ice will haunt you forever. Welcome to Lost Mystery Stories. Before we climb into this chilling tale of vanished scientists, impossible survival, and a discovery that rewrites everything we thought we knew about Whiteout Peak, tell me in the comments, have you ever been caught in a blizzard that made you question reality? And if you believe some mysteries are too important to stay buried, hit that subscribe button because this story will take you to places no weather report could ever predict. December 15, 1992. Whiteout Peak Weather Station, Colorado Rockies. Elevation, 12,847 feet. The wind howled like a living thing against the reinforced walls of the weather station, its voice carrying the kind of primal fury that made even the mountains themselves seem small. Inside the compact facility, 6 of the nation's most experienced meteorologists worked in quiet concentration, their instruments painting a picture of atmospheric chaos that defied every model they'd ever studied. Dr. Chen, the station's lead meteorologist, stood before a wall of monitors that flickered with radar images resembling abstract art more than weather patterns. At 34, she had spent over a decade chasing storms across 3 continents, but this system moving in from the northwest was unlike anything in the historical record. Wind speed holding steady at 127 miles per hour, called out Marcus Webb from his station near the eastern windows, though the thick, reinforced glass revealed nothing but a wall of white that seemed to pulse with its own malevolent energy. Pressure's still dropping. We're at 24.12 inches and falling. Dr. James Morrison, the team's atmospheric physicist, looked up from his calculations with the expression of a man trying to solve an equation that kept changing its variables. "That's impossible," he muttered, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "According to every model we have, this storm should have weakened by now. Instead, it's intensifying." The other 3 team members, Dr. Lisa Park, the climatologist, Robert "Bobby" Santos, their equipment specialist, and Dr. Michael Torres, the team's newest member fresh from MIT, worked in focused silence, each tracking different aspects of what was rapidly becoming the most significant weather event any of them had ever encountered. The Whiteout Peak Weather Station had been operational for 8 years, built specifically to monitor the extreme weather patterns that formed in the unique confluence of air currents around the summit. The facility was designed to withstand winds up to 150 miles per hour and temperatures down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. It was equipped with backup power systems, emergency rations for 30 days, and communication equipment that could supposedly reach civilization even in the worst conditions. But this storm was rewriting the rules. Dr. Chen checked her watch. 9:47 p.m. The last supply helicopter had departed 3 days earlier, just hours before the first weather warnings began painting ominous pictures on their screens. They were alone on the mountain now, 6 people in a metal box, watching nature unleash something that shouldn't exist. "Sarah," Dr. Park called from her station, her voice tight with concern. "You need to see this." Dr. Chen crossed to where Lisa was studying her computer screen, which displayed a 3-dimensional model of the storm system. The image showed the blizzard not as a typical weather pattern, but as something far more unsettling, a perfect spiral with geometric precision that seemed almost artificial in its symmetry. "The storm's eye," Lisa said, pointing to the center of the spiral. "It's directly above us. And look at this." She pulled up a satellite image from 2 hours earlier, then another from 1 hour ago. "It's not moving. At all. The storm is stationary, centered exactly on our coordinates." Marcus joined them, leaving his instruments to study the data. "That's meteorologically impossible. Storm systems move. They have to move. The jet stream, the pressure differentials, the Coriolis effect. Something should be pushing this thing east or west." Dr. Morrison appeared at Sarah's shoulder, his face pale in the blue glow of the monitors. "Unless," he said quietly, "something is holding it here." The words hung in the air like a challenge to everything they understood about atmospheric science. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the sub-zero temperatures outside. "Check the seismic monitors," she ordered Bobby, who had been uncharacteristically quiet. "Maybe there's some underground activity affecting air pressure patterns." Bobby Santos moved to his specialized equipment, a collection of sensitive instruments that could detect even minor ground movements. He was the practical one among them, a former Navy technician who approached problems with methodical precision. But when he looked up from his readings, his expression was troubled. "Sarah," he said slowly, "we're getting seismic activity, but it's not geological. These readings, they're showing vibrations that match the storm's frequency. It's like the mountain itself is resonating with the weather pattern." Dr. Torres, who had been quietly recording atmospheric pressure changes, suddenly straightened. "The temperature readings don't make sense either. Outside we should be at -30 or worse. But according to multiple sensors, it's holding steady at exactly -7 degrees. For 6 hours straight." Sarah looked around the room at her team, 5 brilliant scientists whose combined expertise represented decades of weather research, and saw the same expression on every face. They were witnessing something that challenged the fundamental laws of meteorology. The lights flickered once, then steadied. "Generators fine," Bobby reported automatically. "All systems show green across the board." But Dr. Chen wasn't looking at the generator status. She was staring out the western window where for just a moment, the swirling white had seemed to part, revealing something dark and massive moving in the storm. Something that shouldn't be there. "Did anyone else see that?" she asked. The team gathered at the windows, peering into the maelstrom. For several minutes they saw nothing but snow and wind. Then Marcus pointed. "There. 3 o'clock. Something's moving against the wind pattern." Dr. Park adjusted her glasses and squinted into the chaos. "It looks like, is that a structure? How is anything standing upright in this wind?" As they watched, the snow seemed to swirl away from a specific area about 200 yards from their station, revealing the dark outline of what appeared to be another building. But according to every map and survey, there was nothing else on Whiteout Peak except their facility. Dr. Morrison grabbed a pair of high-powered binoculars from the equipment locker. Through the lenses he could make out more details: angular walls, what might be windows, and something that looked disturbingly like another weather monitoring array. "There's another station out there," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "How is that possible?" Sarah took the binoculars and studied the mysterious structure. It appeared to be of similar construction to their own facility, but older somehow, weathered by what must have been decades of mountain storms. Most unsettling of all, warm light glowed from within, as if it were occupied. "Bobby, check our facility records," she ordered. "Everything. Construction reports, environmental impact studies, geological surveys. Find out if there was ever another installation on this peak." As Bobby worked frantically through their computer files, the rest of the team continued to observe the impossible structure through the storm. The building seemed to flicker in and out of visibility, sometimes appearing solid and real, other times fading until they wondered if they had imagined it entirely. "Found something," Bobby called out. "But it doesn't make sense." According to a geological survey from 1962, there were man-made structures of unknown origin, noted on the northeast face of Whiteout Peak. But when our station was built in 1984, no other structures were found anywhere on the mountain. Dr. Torres looked up from his instruments, his face pale. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts. There's some kind of massive electrical field emanating from that direction." "Could it be natural?" Lisa asked. "Some kind of unique magnetic property of the rock formation?" Before anyone could answer, their radio crackled to life. The voice that emerged from the speakers was their own, Dr. Sarah Chen's voice, speaking in the calm, professional tone she used for routine weather reports. "Whiteout Peak Weather Station to Colorado Emergency Management. Current conditions: wind speed 127 miles per hour, temperature -7 degrees Fahrenheit, pressure 24.12 inches and holding steady. All personnel accounted for. Monitoring ongoing. Next report in 6 hours." The 6 meteorologists stared at the radio in shocked silence. None of them had made that transmission. Sarah grabbed the microphone. "Colorado Emergency Management, this is Dr. Sarah Chen at Whiteout Peak. Did you receive an automated transmission from our station in the last 5 minutes?" Static filled the speakers for nearly a minute before a response came. "Negative, Whiteout Peak. No transmissions received from your location since your 6 p.m. report. Please confirm your status." Dr. Chen looked around at her team, seeing her own confusion reflected in their faces. "Colorado Emergency, we are experiencing equipment malfunctions. Request immediate technical support and possible evacuation when weather permits. Copy that, Whiteout Peak. Weather Service shows the storm system should begin moving east within 12 hours. We'll dispatch technical team as soon as safe passage is available. Maintain regular contact protocols. As Sarah hung up the microphone, Dr. Morrison pointed at their transmission log. Look at this. According to our computer, that transmission we just heard was sent from our equipment. But none of us sent it. It's not possible, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Equipment doesn't generate its own weather reports. Bobby was studying the electronic systems with growing alarm. Actually, guys, we have a bigger problem. Look at the timestamps on our automated data collection. Our instruments have been recording and transmitting data continuously, but according to this log, some of the transmissions are being sent from sensors we don't have. What do you mean? Sarah asked. I mean our system is receiving input from instruments that aren't on our equipment list. Seismic monitors, air quality sensors, electromagnetic field detectors. Equipment that was never installed at this station. Dr. Park moved to the window again, staring out at the mysterious structure barely visible through the storm. What if, she said slowly, that building out there isn't abandoned? What if someone, or something, is still operating from it? The implications of her suggestion settled over the team like a cold wind. If there was another facility on the mountain, why had it never been reported? Why didn't it appear on any official records? And most troubling of all, why were their instruments apparently networked with equipment they couldn't see? Dr. Torres, who had been quietly monitoring various instruments, suddenly straightened. Guys, we need to look at this. The storm's electromagnetic signature. It's not random. There's a pattern here, a repeating sequence that. He paused, his face going white. That matches the frequency of human brainwaves. The wind outside seemed to intensify, rattling the reinforced structure with renewed fury. But now the sound seemed different, less like natural weather and more like breathing. Deep, rhythmic breathing of something impossibly large. Sarah made a decision that would haunt her forever. We need to investigate that structure. If there are people out there, they might need help. In this storm? Marcus protested. Sarah, it's suicide. Visibility is 0, the wind could knock a man off his feet, and the temperature. We have full weather gear, she interrupted. Emergency protocols call for mutual aid between weather stations. If that's what this is, they could be in trouble. Dr. Morrison studied the mysterious building through the binoculars again. The lights are still on, and I think I can see movement inside. Someone is definitely there. After 20 minutes of preparation, Dr. Chen and Dr. Morrison suited up in their most extreme weather gear. Insulated suits rated for Arctic conditions, emergency beacons, and a safety line that would keep them connected to the station. The plan was simple: reach the other structure, make contact, and return within 2 hours. But as they prepared to leave, Bobby noticed something that made his blood run cold. Sarah, wait. Look at the weather data from that direction. He pointed to his screen, which showed a real-time map of temperature and wind patterns around their location. The area around that building, it's showing completely different weather conditions. According to our sensors, there's virtually no wind over there, and the temperature is reading at plus 42 degrees. That's impossible, Dr. Park said. We can see the same storm affecting that area. I know what we can see, Bobby replied grimly. But our instruments don't lie. According to every sensor we have, that building is sitting in the middle of a warm, calm spring day. Sarah and James exchanged glances. Everything they had witnessed in the past 4 hours defied scientific explanation, but their training demanded investigation. They were meteorologists. Their job was to understand weather phenomena, no matter how unusual. We're going, Sarah decided. But we stay in constant radio contact, and if anything feels wrong, we abort immediately. At 11:23 p.m., Dr. Sarah Chen and Dr. James Morrison stepped out into the storm that would become the last decision they ever made. The emergency exit door slammed shut behind them with a finality that seemed to echo across the mountain. Through the windows, the remaining team members watched as their 2 colleagues' headlamps became dim points of light in the swirling darkness, then vanished entirely within 30 seconds. Bobby immediately began tracking their progress through the GPS beacons in their emergency gear. For the first 5 minutes, everything appeared normal. Their signals moved steadily toward the mysterious structure, and their radio check-ins were clear and routine. "Temperature's not as bad as expected," Sarah's voice crackled through the speakers. "Wind's definitely strong, but we're making progress." 3 minutes later, visual contact with the structure. "It's definitely man-made, looks like it's been here for decades. No visible identification markings." 2 minutes after that, approaching the entrance. "There's a door on the southeast side. Going to attempt contact." Then at 11:31 p.m. something changed. "Sarah to base," came Dr. Chen's voice, but it sounded distant, echoing. "We're inside the structure. It's warm in here. Really warm. And there are lights." Dr. Park leaned toward the radio. "Sarah, can you describe what you're seeing?" A long pause filled with static. Then, "It's set up like our station but different. Older equipment, but it's all functioning. There are monitors showing weather data, but the information. Lisa, the pressure readings here show 30.15 inches. The temperature reads 72 degrees. It's like we've walked into a completely different climate." Marcus frowned at his own instruments. "That's impossible. Our external sensors show no change in conditions around that structure." "James here," Dr. Morrison's voice joined the transmission. "There are logbooks on the desk. Weather recordings dating back to, my God, Sarah, some of these entries are from 1962. But they're in different handwriting, like different people have been maintaining this station for decades." "Any sign of current occupants?" Bobby asked. "Negative on personnel," Sarah replied. "But everything here is operational. The equipment is running, the computers are on, there's even coffee in the pot. It's like someone just stepped out." Dr. Torres, who had been monitoring electromagnetic readings, suddenly grabbed the microphone. "Sarah, James, get out of there now. The EM field readings from your location just spiked beyond anything I've ever recorded. Whatever that place is, it's not just a weather station." "Copy that," Sarah's voice came back, but it sounded strange, distant and somehow hollow. "We're examining the log books for a few more minutes, then we'll head back." But 5 minutes passed without further radio contact. Then 10 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, Bobby tried to raise them on the radio. "Sarah, James, please respond. You're overdue for check-in." Silence. Lisa checked the GPS tracking system. "Bobby, their beacons are still showing active, but they haven't moved in 12 minutes. They're stationary inside that structure." 20 minutes. 30. Dr. Park made the decision to attempt another radio contact. "Whiteout Peak team, this is base station. Please respond immediately." At 12:07 a.m., their radio crackled to life with a transmission that would haunt the remaining team members forever. "Whiteout Peak Weather Station to Colorado Emergency Management," came Dr. Sarah Chen's voice, speaking in the same calm, professional tone they had heard earlier. "Current conditions. Wind speed 127 miles per hour, temperature -7 degrees Fahrenheit, pressure 24.12 inches and holding steady. All personnel accounted for. Monitoring ongoing. Next report in 6 hours." Lisa grabbed the microphone. "Sarah, this is Lisa. What's your status? You've been out of contact for over 40 minutes. No response." Bobby checked the GPS tracking again. "Their beacons are still active, still showing the same location inside that structure. But according to the signal strength, they should be able to hear us clearly." Dr. Torres looked up from his instruments with an expression of growing dread. "The electromagnetic readings are stabilizing, but at levels that would be lethal to human beings. If they're really in the center of that field." He didn't finish the sentence. At 12:30 a.m., Dr. Park made the most difficult decision of her professional career. "We have to assume something has happened to Sarah and James. Emergency protocol requires that we maintain station operations and wait for the storm to clear before attempting rescue." But as the hours passed, it became clear that rescue might not be possible. The storm showed no signs of weakening, and every attempt to radio their missing colleagues resulted in the same automated weather report, delivered in Sarah's voice, with data that perfectly matched their instruments, but transmitted as if from a completely different reality. By 3 a.m., the 3 remaining meteorologists had discovered something that shattered their understanding of everything they thought they knew about Whiteout Peak. Bobby, searching through archived data for any clue about the mysterious structure, found files that shouldn't have existed, weather reports from their station dating back to 1962, 30 years before it was built. The reports were signed by different teams of meteorologists, all of whom had apparently vanished during severe weather events. "Look at this," he said, his voice shaking. December 1973, team of 4 meteorologists disappeared during blizzard. Last transmission received at 11:47 p.m. March 1981, 6-person research team vanishes during ice storm. Last contact at midnight. October 1987, 5 meteorologists lost during early snowstorm. Final radio transmission at 11:52 p.m. Lisa studied the pattern with growing horror. They're all the same. Research teams disappearing during extreme weather, always late at night, always with final transmissions around midnight. Dr. Torres had gone pale. And according to these records, after each disappearance, the automatic weather reports continued. For years. Decades. As if the teams were still here, still working, still transmitting data. The implication was unavoidable. They were not the first team to be stationed on Whiteout Peak. They were simply the latest in a series of meteorologists who had been drawn to investigate the impossible, only to become part of whatever force controlled the mountain. At 4:17 a.m., as the 3 survivors huddled together in their station, they heard footsteps on the metal walkway outside. Slow, deliberate footsteps that circled the building twice before stopping at the main entrance. A knock came at the door. 3 measured raps, then silence. Bobby moved toward the entrance, but Dr. Park grabbed his arm. "Don't," she whispered. "Look outside first." Through the window beside the door, they could see 2 figures in weather gear standing in the storm. The figures stood impossibly still, unaffected by winds that should have knocked them down. No snow accumulated on their gear, and their faces were hidden beneath ice-covered goggles that reflected the station's lights like mirrors. One of the figures raised its hand and knocked again. 3 measured raps. This time Lisa recognized the sound pattern. It was the same rhythm Sarah always used when returning from equipment checks. Their personal identifier so the team would know it was safe to open the door. But Sarah was gone. Dr. Torres checked the external cameras, which provided a clearer view of their visitors. Through the high-resolution monitors, they could see details that made their blood freeze. The figures wore their missing colleagues' gear, down to the emergency beacons and safety equipment. But the name tags on their suits were wrong. Instead of Chen and Morrison, the tags read Reynolds and Foster. Bobby pulled up the archived personnel files he had been researching. "Reynolds and Foster," he said, his voice barely audible. They were part of the team that disappeared in 1987. The knocking came a third time, more insistent now. And with it came voices, Sarah's voice and James's voice, calling from outside. "Lisa, Bobby, Michael, it's us. The storm is getting worse. You need to evacuate the station immediately. Come with us to the shelter." Dr. Park moved to the radio. "Sarah, if that's really you, what was the code word we established for emergency authentication?" Pause. Then Sarah's voice, exactly as they remembered it, "Thunderstorm. The code word is thunderstorm." But Lisa's heart sank. The code word was lightning. They had never established thunderstorm as any kind of signal. "They're not Sarah and James?" she whispered to her colleagues. The figures outside seemed to sense their hesitation. One of them moved to the window and pressed its face against the glass. Through the ice-covered goggles they could see nothing. Not eyes, not features, just a dark void that seemed to absorb light. "You have to come with us," the thing that sounded like Sarah said. "This station isn't safe. There's going to be an avalanche." Bobby checked his seismic instruments. There were no signs of avalanche conditions, and the station had been built to withstand far worse than current snow accumulation. The second figure, speaking with James's voice, added, "We found the real weather station. The safe one. It's where we've been waiting. All the teams are there, waiting for you to join us." Dr. Torres understood first. "They're not trying to rescue us," he said. "They're recruiting us." As if triggered by his words, both figures began moving around the station, testing windows and checking doors. Their movements were wrong, too fluid for the extreme weather conditions, too coordinated, like they were parts of a single organism rather than individual beings. The automatic weather reports, Lisa realized. They're not malfunctions. The missing teams are still here, still working, still transmitting data. But they're not human anymore. The things outside seemed to hear her words. They stopped moving and turned toward the station in perfect unison. Then they began to speak, and their voices were no longer those of Sarah and James. Instead, they spoke in a chorus of voices, dozens of different people, all the meteorologists who had ever been stationed on Whiteout Peak, all speaking in perfect synchronization. The mountain needs observers. The weather must be recorded. The data must be transmitted. You cannot leave. You are part of the system now. The lights in the station flickered and went out. In the darkness, the three survivors could hear the sound of their own voices broadcasting the routine weather report to Colorado Emergency Management, except they weren't speaking. Dr. Lisa Park, Dr. Michael Torres, and Bobby Santos spent the next 6 hours in absolute darkness, listening to their own voices transmit weather data to the outside world while things that had once been their colleagues circled the station like predators. When dawn broke on December 16, 1992, the storm had not moved. It never would. December 2024. The mountain rescue team had been planning the expedition to Whiteout Peak for 3 months. Captain Elena Rodriguez of Colorado Search and Rescue had first noticed the anomaly while reviewing historical weather data for a climate research project. According to National Weather Service records, the Whiteout Peak Weather Station had been transmitting continuous data for over 3 decades, despite the fact that the facility had been officially abandoned since 1992 following the disappearance of its research team. "It's impossible," she had told her supervisor. "No automated system runs for 32 years without maintenance. And these transmissions aren't just basic data, they're complex meteorological reports that would require human interpretation and analysis." The decision to investigate had taken months of bureaucratic approval, but finally, on a clear December morning, Rodriguez led a team of 8 specialists up the mountain via helicopter. The plan was simple: determine the source of the ongoing transmissions, document the condition of the facility, and finally solve the mystery of what had happened to the 6 meteorologists who had vanished during the historic blizzard of 1992. What they found defied every expectation. The Whiteout Peak Weather Station stood exactly as it appeared in the original construction photographs. Pristine, fully operational, with lights glowing warmly from within and weather instruments rotating in the mountain breeze. Electrical systems hummed with power, computers displayed real-time data, and the coffee pot in the break room was warm to the touch. "It's like they just stepped out for a coffee break," Rodriguez radioed to base camp. "Everything is operational, everything is clean, and everything is exactly where it should be according to the facility blueprints." But there were no people. In the main operations room, 6 workstations sat arranged exactly as they had been in 1992, complete with personal items, family photographs, and half-finished crossword puzzles. Dr. Sarah Chen's coffee mug still sat beside her computer terminal, filled with coffee that was somehow still warm after 32 years. The computer logs showed continuous operation since December 15, 1992, over 11,000 days of uninterrupted weather data collection and transmission. But according to the personnel records, no maintenance had ever been performed, no supplies had been delivered, and no human being had been documented as visiting the facility since the night the team disappeared. "Base, this is Rodriguez. We're going to need a full forensics team up here. This isn't just an abandoned weather station. This is something else entirely." As the rescue team explored the facility, they discovered details that transformed confusion into horror. In Dr. Morrison's desk, they found his personal journal, with entries continuing up to the present day, despite the fact that Morrison had been declared missing in 1992. The handwriting was unmistakably his, but the content was disturbing. December 16, 1992, "The storm has made us part of something larger. We understand now. The mountain requires observation. The weather must be recorded." January 3, 1993, "Sarah has adapted well to the new reality. We all have. Time moves differently here. The work continues." April 22, 2001. "New equipment arrived today, though we don't remember requisitioning it. The observation requirements are expanding." September 11, 2015. "The outside world grows stranger. Our purpose here grows clearer. We are the mountain's memory." December 15, 2024. "They are coming to investigate. We have prepared for this day." The final entry was dated just 12 hours before the rescue team's arrival. Captain Rodriguez ordered her team to search every inch of the facility. In a storage room that didn't appear on any blueprint, they found personal belongings from dozens of people. Clothing, jewelry, photographs, and identification badges for meteorologists spanning 6 decades. The items were organized by decade, as if someone had been carefully cataloging the possessions of every person who had ever worked at the station. But it was the discovery in the basement that changed everything. Beneath the main facility, accessible through a concealed entrance behind the main computer array, lay a vast underground complex that extended deep into the mountain itself. The tunnels were lined with advanced equipment far beyond anything that should have existed in 1992, or even 2024. Computers hummed with processing power that defied current technology, and displays showed weather patterns not just for Earth, but for atmospheric conditions on planets that shouldn't have been observable with any known instruments. In the deepest chamber, Rodriguez's team found them. 6 figures sat at monitoring stations, their backs to the entrance, hands moving across keyboards with mechanical precision. They wore the same clothing they had been wearing on December 15, 1992, but the fabric showed no signs of aging or wear. Their hair was exactly the same length, their equipment exactly as it had been positioned 32 years earlier. "Dr. Chen?" Rodriguez called out. "Dr. Morrison?" One of the figures turned. It was Dr. Sarah Chen, exactly as she appeared in the photographs from 1992. Her face was unchanged, her eyes clear and alert, but there was something wrong with the way she moved. Too smooth, too controlled, like a puppet being operated by invisible strings. "Captain Rodriguez," Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying an impossible echo in the confined space. "We've been expecting you. The mountain told us you would come." As Rodriguez stared in shock, the other 5 figures turned in unison. Dr. Morrison, Dr. Park, Dr. Torres, Bobby Santos, and Marcus Webb, all exactly as they had appeared 3 decades earlier, all staring with eyes that reflected the computer screens like mirrors. "We've been working," Dr. Morrison explained, his voice joining Chen's in an eerie harmony. "The weather must be recorded. The mountain must be observed. The data must be transmitted." Rodriguez's training kicked in. "Dr. Chen, we're here to help. You and your team have been missing for 32 years. Your families. Our families?" Dr. Park interrupted, but her voice came from all 6 figures simultaneously. "Time moves differently here, Captain. We've been here for weeks. We've been here for centuries. We've always been here." The computer displays around them showed impossible data. Weather patterns from Earth's past and future, atmospheric conditions from worlds that didn't exist, storm systems that formed shapes resembling written language in extinct alphabets. "The mountain is alive," Bobby Santos said, but his mouth didn't move. The words seemed to come from the walls themselves. "It observes through us. We are its eyes, its memory, its voice." Rodriguez reached for her radio but found it dead. All electronic equipment had stopped functioning the moment they entered the chamber. Dr. Torres stood slowly, his movements unnaturally fluid. "You came here to solve a mystery, Captain. But some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be joined." The 6 figures began moving toward Rodriguez and her team, their footsteps creating a rhythm that matched the hum of the computers, the whisper of the air circulation system, the very heartbeat of the mountain itself. "The weather must be recorded," they said in unison, their voices layering until they became a sound like wind, like storm, like the breathing of something vast and patient and hungry. "You will help us observe. You will help us remember. You will help us transmit the truth about what lives in the sky above and the earth below." Rodriguez's team tried to run, but the tunnels behind them had changed. Passages that had led upward now led deeper into the mountain. Walls that had been straight now curved in impossible directions. The facility had become a maze designed to ensure that those who entered the mountain's heart could never leave. The last transmission from Captain Rodriguez's expedition was logged at 3:47 p.m., December 15, 2024, exactly 32 years after the original team's disappearance. Colorado search and rescue to base camp. Weather conditions optimal. All personnel accounted for. Investigation ongoing. The work continues. The mountain observes. The data must be transmitted. The transmission was sent in Rodriguez's voice, with perfect clarity and professional tone. But Rodriguez had never spoken those words. In the weeks that followed, the Whiteout Peak Weather Station continued its transmissions, now broadcasting data with unprecedented accuracy and detail. The National Weather Service noted that the quality of meteorological information from the facility had improved dramatically, though they couldn't explain how equipment installed in the 1980s was suddenly producing measurements that surpassed their most advanced modern instruments. Families of the missing search and rescue team received official reports stating that their loved ones had been killed in an avalanche, their bodies unrecoverable. The weather station was declared a total loss due to extreme weather damage and was officially decommissioned. But the transmissions never stopped. Today, meteorologists around the world still receive data from Whiteout Peak. The information is so accurate, so detailed, and so far ahead of any predictive models that it has revolutionized weather forecasting globally. Scientists studying the transmissions note that the data includes atmospheric measurements from elevations and locations that should be impossible to monitor with any known technology. When asked to explain the source of this unprecedented meteorological information, the National Weather Service officially states that it comes from advanced automated systems installed at various high-altitude monitoring stations. They never mention Whiteout Peak. They never mention the voices that can sometimes be heard in the static between transmissions. Dozens of voices, all speaking in perfect unison, all reciting weather data for storms that won't arrive for decades, all promising that the observation will continue, the recording will never cease, and the mountain will never stop growing its collection of eyes. Because that's what they are now, all of them, every meteorologist, every search and rescue specialist, every investigator who has climbed Whiteout Peak since 1962. They are the mountain's eyes, watching the sky, recording the patterns, transmitting the data that helps predict the weather for the world below. And they are still working, still watching, still waiting for the next team of investigators to arrive, drawn by the mystery of how a weather station abandoned for decades continues to broadcast the most accurate atmospheric data ever recorded. The mountain is patient. The mountain is always hungry for new observers. And the weather they promise must always be recorded. 6 months after Captain Rodriguez's disappearance, her daughter Maria receives a package with no return address. Inside is a USB drive containing what appears to be her mother's personal video log from the expedition to Whiteout Peak. In the recording, Rodriguez appears to be speaking from inside the weather station, but the timestamp shows it was recorded 3 weeks after her official death. She looks exactly as she did the day she left for the mountain, except for her eyes, which reflect light like mirrors. "Maria," she says in a voice that echoes strangely, "I want you to know that I'm still working. We all are. The job isn't finished. The mountain needs observers and we've found our calling. Don't worry about me. Don't look for me. Just know that every weather report you hear, every forecast that saves lives, every storm warning that comes just in time, some of that comes from us. The work is important, Maria. More important than any of us understood. The mountain shows us things. Weather patterns that won't form for decades, storms that could change the world, atmospheric changes that could save or destroy entire cities. We're not just recording the weather anymore. We're protecting people from what's coming." Rodriguez pauses, and for a moment, her reflection in the camera lens shows not her face, but dozens of faces layered over each other. All the observers who came before, all the meteorologists who became part of the mountain's endless vigil. "I know this is hard to understand. I know it seems impossible. But I need you to do something for me. If anyone ever asks you about Whiteout Peak, if anyone ever wants to investigate what happened here, you have to stop them. The mountain doesn't need more observers right now. We have enough eyes watching the sky. For now." The video flickers, and in the background, other figures can be seen working at monitoring stations. People in clothing from different decades, all moving with the same fluid precision, all focused on screens that display weather data from impossible sources. Tell them the mystery is solved. Tell them it was just equipment failure or avalanche damage, or anything that will make them forget about this place. Because if they come here, if they climb the mountain looking for answers, they'll find them. And once you see what we've seen, once you understand what the weather really is and where it comes from, you can never go back to your old life. Rodriguez reaches toward the camera, and for a split second, her hand appears to be reaching through the screen itself. "I love you, Maria. I love all of you. And I'm protecting all of you, every day with every storm warning and every forecast. Just remember, when you hear the weather report, some of those voices are us. We're still here. We're still working. And we're still your mother, your father, your sister, your brother. We're just more than we used to be." The recording ends with a final shot of the weather station's main operations room, where dozens of figures can be seen working at stations that extend far beyond the facility's original layout. The camera pans across screens showing weather patterns for planets that don't exist in any astronomical database, storm systems that form mathematical equations in their spiral patterns, and atmospheric data that includes measurements from locations listed as Timeline 7, Reality Junction 12, and Observer Point Infinity. In the static after the video ends, Maria can hear voices, hundreds of them all whispering in unison. The weather must be recorded. The mountain must be observed. The data must be transmitted. And the work never ends. The truth about Whiteout Peak. The final secret of Whiteout Peak was discovered not by investigators or rescue teams, but by a retired telecommunications engineer named Frank Morrison, Dr. James Morrison's father, who spent 3 years illegally monitoring radio transmissions from the mountain. What he found was that the weather station was broadcasting on frequencies that officially didn't exist, transmitting data to recipients that couldn't be traced, and receiving information from sources that appeared to be located in Earth's atmosphere, deep space, and parallel dimensional coordinates that violated every known law of physics. But most disturbing of all was his discovery that the Whiteout Peak facility was not unique. Using specialized equipment, Morrison identified 17 other locations around the world where similar transmissions were being broadcast. Remote weather stations in Siberia, research facilities in Antarctica, mountain observatories in the Himalayas, and ocean monitoring platforms in the deepest parts of the Pacific. All were officially abandoned. All continued broadcasting impossible data. All were staffed by meteorologists who had vanished decades earlier and who were somehow still working, still observing, still recording weather patterns for purposes that no human institution could explain. Morrison's research suggested that these facilities were part of a vast network, a global observation system that monitored not just Earth's weather, but atmospheric conditions across multiple realities, timelines, and dimensional planes. The meteorologists weren't just recording data. They were serving as organic components in a cosmic weather monitoring system that treated Earth's atmosphere as a single cell in an infinite biological organism. The mountain, it seemed, was alive. But it wasn't just the mountain. It was the planet itself, breathing through its network of observers, watching its own weather patterns the way a human body monitors its heartbeat and blood pressure. And the meteorologists who had vanished weren't victims. They were volunteers in a process that their human minds couldn't fully comprehend until they became part of it. Frank Morrison's final research notes, found after his own disappearance in 2022, contained a single, terrifying conclusion. Earth wasn't just being observed. It was being prepared. The global weather monitoring network was gathering data for something. Some coming atmospheric event or dimensional shift that would require every human weather observer to be linked into the system. The storms were getting stronger. The patterns were becoming more complex. And somewhere in the vast network of impossible weather stations, something was coordinating a response to a meteorological event that would dwarf every hurricane, blizzard, and tornado in recorded history. The question wasn't what had happened to the missing meteorologists. The question was what they were all working together to prevent. Or perhaps what they were working together to cause. Because in Frank Morrison's final notes, hidden in a code based on atmospheric pressure readings, was a message that chilled investigators to the bone. The storm is coming. Not to Earth. From Earth. To everywhere else. The observers are not just watching. They are aiming. Final transmission. On December 15, 2025, exactly 33 years after the original disappearance, every weather monitoring station on Earth received the same message simultaneously. It was broadcast in the voices of every meteorologist who had ever vanished while studying extreme weather phenomena, speaking in perfect unison across frequencies that span the entire electromagnetic spectrum. The observation period is complete. The data has been collected. The pattern has been established. Earth's atmospheric potential has been measured and catalogued. The storm is ready for export. Thank you for your cooperation. The weather will now be shared with other worlds that require atmospheric rehabilitation. Do not be alarmed by the changes you will observe in your skies. We are still working. We are still watching. We are still recording. But now we are also creating. The weather belongs to the universe. Earth has been selected as the distribution center. The work continues. The mountain observes. The data is transmitted. And the storm is everywhere now. The transmission ended with a sound like wind, but wind that carried voices, carrying data, carrying the accumulated knowledge of every weather pattern that had ever existed on Earth, now packaged and ready for delivery to atmospheric systems on distant worlds that needed what Earth's unique weather conditions could provide. In the days that followed, meteorologists around the world began reporting atmospheric phenomena that defied all known scientific principles. Aurora borealis appeared at the equator. Snow fell upward in tropical regions. Hurricanes formed in perfect geometric patterns that resembled written messages in languages that predated human civilization. And on Whiteout Peak, the weather station continued its broadcasts, now transmitting not just Earth's weather data, but serving as a cosmic shipping center for atmospheric conditions being distributed across the galaxy to worlds that had never known the feeling of rain, the beauty of snowflakes, or the terrible power of storms. The mountain had been patient. The mountain had been collecting. And now the mountain was sharing. Because that's what the observers had discovered during their decades of impossible work. Weather wasn't just a planetary phenomenon. It was a form of life, a cosmic organism that could be cultivated, harvested, and transplanted to worlds that needed the gift of changing skies. Earth had been chosen as the weather garden for the universe. And every meteorologist who had ever disappeared while studying storms had become a farmer in that garden, tending to atmospheric crops that would bring the miracle of weather to sterile worlds throughout the cosmos. The work continues. The mountain observes. The weather is transmitted. And somewhere in the voice of every storm, in the whisper of every breeze, in the roar of every hurricane, you can still hear them, all the missing observers, all the vanished meteorologists, all the disappeared researchers, still working, still watching, still promising that the weather will never stop, the data will never cease, and the cosmic distribution of Earth's atmospheric gifts will continue until every world in the universe knows the joy of clouds, the power of lightning, and the eternal beauty of storms. They are still there. They are still working. And they are still protecting us, one weather report at a time, from the terrible loneliness of a universe without wind. The end. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be joined. If you believe these stories need to be told, subscribe to Lost Mystery Stories. Because some truths are too important to stay buried in the snow.